Hey, what's up, Geekscapists? Welcome to our brand new Geekscape podcast. I'm Jonathan London, your host, and thanks for coming. Maybe you're here because you always listen to Geekscape and you love it, and if so, I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. If you're here because we're going to be talking about the brand new PS4, PS5 game, Miles Morales Spider-Man, then you're in luck because this is the Spider-Man Miles Morales special. I've played through the game. I haven't 100%ed the trophies, but I definitely 100%ed every story mission that you can have in the game, side missions, main story, all that stuff. And I've got two buddies of mine who are going to join me to talk all about it. We're going to hold all the spoilers until the end of the show, so there will definitely be a spoiler warning. If you want to kind of just watch for a while and hear us talk about the differences between playing on the PS4 versus the PS5, we got you. If you want to hear about the difference between playing on the DualShock controller versus the DualSense controller, we got you. Maybe some of the technical glitches or some of the changes that have happened between Spider-Man on the PS4 with Peter Parker and the Miles Morales game, whether it's fighting, story, gameplay, some of that early stuff, we got you. There will be a spoiler warning letting you know when we really start getting into the story, the ending, what this means going forward for the games, because this is really, I thought the game was awesome. It is short, but we all knew that going in. And there's a lot to talk about. So this is the Miles Morales Spider-Man special, talking about the video game. And it'll be fun. We will give you that spoiler warning. While you're listening, go ahead and hit that share button. Let your friends know about Geekscape. This is a podcast that we do for free for you. And we've been doing it for a long time. So all I ask is that you tell your friends about us. Go follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all that. Be a part of Geekscape if you're not already. And that's really the only payment I ask, is that you become a faithful Geekscape disciple and spread the love to all your friends. Okay, let's get into it. Right off the bat, we got in the comments, Facebook, Von Bolden saying the game Miles Morales was fantastic. So I'm guessing he finished the game. He's going to be in it for the long haul in this broadcast. And feel free, if you're in the comments and you've played the game, to throw out some questions, throw out some stuff you want us to talk about. Please do not in the comments throw out spoilers, because that really sucks for everybody. If you're in the comment thread and suddenly someone spoils the end of the game. I thought the story was great and it deserves to be enjoyed. That being said, talking to Geekscape friend Yuri Lowenthal, who did the voice of Peter Parker in the first game and in this game, Yuri admitted he only knows the stuff that happened in Miles Morales in the scenes that he's in. And he doesn't know the whole story in the game. So even he's in the dark. And I said, dude, I just said you did a great job. I loved every part of the game. And I'm not going to spoil it for Yuri Lowenthal. And I'm not going to spoil it for you here. It's a fun game. And if you love that first Spider-Man, it's really worth your while to go and get it and enjoy the story and discover it for yourselves. Okay, right off the bat, let's do it. Let's get to it. Let's talk about Miles Morales Spider-Man. I'm going to do a little intro here. First, I got to bring in this guy. He's a longtime Geekscape, 15 years running. 16 if you count Geekdrome. I think that math is right. Who knows? It's 2020. It's been a long year. But our good friend coming in from New York, just like Spider-Man, is Big Yanks. No big surprise there. There's Big Yanks.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, buddy. I lost my Geekscape background, I just noticed. So I just threw it back up on the there it is. There's the Geekscape background. Danny, how are you doing, man? When you're playing this game, we will ask you soon about the fidelity of New York. I think it's pretty awesome that you can find a lot of amazing New York landmarks and some stuff in the MCU, like Doctor Strange's house and Avengers Tower. It's kind of cool being from New York and being able to play in New York.
Yeah, I went to look for my old apartment and it didn't reach that high, the number.
Was that in Washington Heights or something?
No, 143rd and Broadway and Riverside. So since being from New York, I was like, okay, so this is Riverside. The next block should be Broadway, but it was like Amsterdam. I was like, that's like 3 blocks in between, missing 3 avenues.
Mm-hmm.
Then it went from 141st to 144, and then the cemetery is really on 157, but they put it at the end. There's these imaginary bridges. Whatever. I let it go.
I noticed the imaginary bridges, but I only lived in New York for 2 years. Joining Danny, Big Yanks, and I as our good friend Justin. Justin's never been on Geekscape, but I think he's a Geekscape veteran because Justin's had to put up with Ian and
my name's been mentioned a couple of times, I think, in you and Ian's discussions. So I'm kind of like an honorary. I'm like an honorary Geekscapeist.
Geekscapists don't know this, but Justin and I are on a text thread with Ian that is just relentless.
Is Justin the guy when you guys say like, oh, our friend who we went to the movie with? Is
it's usually Justin.
My sympathies, Justin. Sorry.
Yeah, I have to sit between. I'm usually between Jonathan and Ian.
So they're all just like tapping each other. Like,
well, I'm the one that has to get an earful from Ian when it's like there's a reference that comes up that is like a deep cut from Marvel or DC that just in case I missed it, Ian's the guy who's got to point it out. Like, oh, that's.
And a long time ago, I told myself, I basically was like, I will strategically never sit next to Ian because it takes you out of the movie when somebody's like whispering the most like random, like minuscule detail in a movie, and I just want to watch the damn movie.
Yeah, that's Albert's niece. That's
that might be important later. It's never important later. So yes, Justin is a saint. He's the nicest dude, and he is a good sport about being placed strategically between Ian and I. And if Justin deems something that Ian says is important, he'll pass it on to me. But in our text exchanges,
I'm like the filter. Yeah, I'm the filter.
In our text exchanges, Ian will be like, "Hey, you really need to read this comic book. It came out. It's really going to be important." I'll immediately text Justin and be like, "Do you agree?" And Justin will be like, "No, not at all." So that'll save me $5 right there. So Justin is like the trusted intermediary between me and our good friend Ian, who may have been kicked in the head way too many times, or that kind of thing. So let's get to it. This is the Miles Morales Spider-Man. Let me let the Geekscapists know that we're going to be talking non-spoilers here for a bit. So you're totally safe if you have not played Miles Morales Spider-Man. You're probably not safe, though, if you haven't played the original Spider-Man on the PS4, the one with Peter Parker. So where do y'all want to start? Because I called Spider-Man PS4 the game of the year in 2018. I thought that game was perfect. It was fun from the web slinging to just the story. I think the story and the 2018 Spider-Man is a top 5 Doc Ock story. The writers did a great job.
Yeah.
That relationship between Peter and Otto, and then the relationship with him and the other characters in the game, an early Miles, a younger Miles being one of them, I thought was spot on and as good as anything that's been in the MCU movies or on the comic page.
Easily. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, where I like the story of that first game is as good, if not better, than like 90% of Spider-Man, fiction in any medium in the last 20 years or so. It's like just so like they did such a great job of just kind of distilling the essence of that.
And it wasn't the old school stuff, because
yeah,
for me the standard for a Spider-Man video game for a long time was that first PS1 game. That was a lot of fun and had more of like a classic 1960s Spider-Man feel. Mm-hmm. And then when the Spider-Man 2 movie came out with
Spider-Man 2 game, it's kind of
that was a great game. I'm a big fan of the one that was really heavily influenced. It was actually Ultimate Spider-Man. I played it on the GameCube, and that one was really based on the Ultimate Spider-Man version. It had cell shading. It looked like
the game was great. Yeah.
I thought that was a lot of fun, and those were, for me, the gold standard of a Spider-Man game. But the 2018 Spider-Man,
and then we had a long drought. We had like a long drought of really bad Spider-Man games before.
And Batman stepped in with like Arkham Asylum,
and
Arkham City, and kind of was the open world, or kind of really story heavy. Kind of set the standard for comic book games, because it did a really good job of featuring almost all of the key rogues in the the Spider-Man game in 2018. From not just classic villains, but current villains like Mr. Negative. Those were all really woven into the story in a great way. And some of them were interpreted and updated, like Doc Ock's relationship with Peter, which he's been Spider-Man for a couple of years now, and it's caused problems between him and Mary Jane. It was really a great story, and we definitely got a Peter that's experienced. It wasn't Tom Holland It wasn't like a first year Peter Parker. It was experienced Peter Parker, and he's had a couple of years of the strain of being Spider-Man, and now like things are shifting in his life. And I thought that was a great story, and where it ended was really good. And you get the reveal in the post-credit scene that like Miles was bit by a spider, and he's able to cling to the ceiling, and it sets up this game perfectly. Danny, what were your impressions on that first game? Because I think we all played it pretty religiously.
No, yeah, I legit 100%ed it. All the trophies, everything. I think I was just sucked into it because it was like playing the comic. Like the sense of like reading the comics is what I got from the game, and just like the mechanics and everything. It was just, like it was hard to put down, and the story was just enthralling.
And the side missions are great. It really did a good job of like throwing a lot of Easter eggs of the MCU. When Taskmaster showed up as one of the side missions storylines, I thought that was pretty amazing. I didn't get to that stuff until later in the game, and it felt like I just kept uncovering parts of the of the Marvel universe beyond Spider-Man, whether it was
the way I play it, like,
or a character.
The way I play is I do all the side missions and all the all the little like knickknacks before I keep continuing with the main story. Yeah,
and in a game that was that big, that was actually a pretty big achievement to be able to do that. But I agree with you. You want Peter to be totally powered up. You want to unlock as much as you can before you finish the story. Because once you finish the story, going back to a city that doesn't really have the same motivation.
Yeah, you don't have as much incentive to,
I saved New York already. It doesn't even... I'm on vacation.
And that game was huge. At the end of that game, you have Manhattan basically just like there's criminals everywhere. The raft has been, upended. Doc Ock is going crazy, and this game takes like place a couple months after that one. It's winter now. I think it's awesome that they gave it the winter setting.
Yeah,
and you start out with Miles. Miles's father was killed in the earlier game. It was really that scene where Miles's father is killed in the earlier game, and Mr. Negative is kind of revealed as the big villain. I thought that was the turning point in the game, and where things got really real. And story-wise, in the Miles Morales Spider-Man, you're playing as Miles, you're used to playing as Peter, and you're kind of learning who Miles is. The neighborhood is also learning who Miles is. I thought they did an awesome job of really nailing the fact that like Miles is new to this. The neighborhood doesn't accept him as Spider-Man. There's a mural going up down the street.
Yeah. I was just gonna say
other Spider-Man.
And he's like, yeah, maybe. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
An early side mission is he goes to save a cat. It's called Spider-Man, and when he shows up, he's like, "Oh no, I named him after the other Spider-Man, not you. Nobody knows who you are."
In the beginning too, I think they just kept referring to him like, "Oh look, it's other Spider-Man."
Yeah.
And then by the end of the, everybody's like, "Oh, that's our Spider-Man."
Yeah. So by the end of the game, and again, we're not going to spoil anything until the end, but by the end of the game, this is really a game about Miles coming into his own as Spider-Man. And that first mission, which you all see in the advertisements, has him and Peter Parker battling the Rhino. Really feels like a classic kind of bridge between the 2018 PS4 game and this new one that's on the PS5 and the PS4. And we'll talk about the technical differences on both. But that was kind of like the handoff, because you find out that Peter's going to go overseas with Mary Jane
on vacation.
To like Sicaria or someplace like that. And Miles has the keys for a couple weeks to Manhattan, like make sure New York stays safe. And clearly when there's villains running around, like they just, got they just dealt with the Rhino and destroyed a mall and a bunch of stuff. Like problems are going to happen, and they happen pretty quickly. And this is Miles's time to shine. The story-wise, again, it was super awesome. And it was a great place to start a character out where over the course of the story, he has to gain confidence. We got a lot to talk about in the first half of this game before we spoil things. So let's talk about like the gameplay just off the bat. Like how did y'all find the gameplay between Peter and Miles? And what were the differences that y'all noticed and possibly improvements?
I just noticed when I started it up, I was like, all right, like back into the swing of things. And I'm playing, I'm like, oh, this like Miles is moving a little bit more fluid. Is a little bit more like, like swag to him while swinging around and all his fighting combat modes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I dig it. I liked it.
What did you think?
Yes, I mean, it's faster. The combat's faster. It's, he can his crowd control ability is a lot more. He's got like a lot more crowd control ability, I think, than Peter does. Whereas in the first game, it was you were kind of mostly taking out like one dude at a time, and you kind of jump. You could jump back and forth between guys, but when you were fighting a big crowd, it's like you didn't have a lot of options to sort of like take them all down quickly. Whereas this, I feel like you could just like as Miles, you're just like bam, 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 and before you know it, you've like taken out 10 dudes. Especially once I don't think it's a spoiler to say, obviously, you know what Miles Morales, like the differences of his powers versus Peter Parker's powers is he has his, his bioelectric shot powers, the venom punch.
He's got like a venom punch and he's got the bioelectric shock. And he's also getting better over the course of the game.
Yeah,
like he's learning a few more powers that obviously, like as game mechanics go, you unlock them over the course of the game. You kind of level up some of those abilities and things like that. What I thought was cool was they did a great job, like in that first game, of whenever you unlock a new piece of gear or you unlock a new ability, the story didn't really shoehorn it in. It was pretty fluid. The writing of these games is awesome, and I think that the Miles Morales game is as well written as that first one, and that was a pretty high bar.
Yeah, it was.
Like if that first game is the top 5 Doc Ock story, and it is, it's a top 5 Doc Ock story, and I'm including like the Molina Doc Ock story in Spider-Man 2. Just awesome Doc Ock.
Yeah, which definitely took a little bit of influence from that for sure. Like you get a little bit of the Molina Doc Ock, in the one. He kind of borrows from a lot of different.
Here we learned
of that character
pretty early on that even though we've like dispatched the Rhino, and the Rhino, I love the Rhino. He's such a doofus. Like it's great. The Rhino's a really great standard Spider-Man character to like warm up on and have it. He's not going to be the big bad because he doesn't have the brains to be the big bad. Yeah. But you meet the big bads pretty quick, and you don't know necessarily that they're big bads because they're like reinterpretations of characters from the comics that weren't necessarily big bads. You got a couple characters. The first one is like the presence of Roxxon, which is a Marvel like standard bad guy corporation, and Roxxon has moved in now that the Kingpin for the first game has been thrown out and there's been that kind of power vacuum. Roxxon's taken over, and you meet this character Simon Krieger. Ian can tell you whether or not he's in the comics, and and Troy Baker does an amazing job of doing the character, because Troy Baker does an amazing job of voicing everybody, and you just know from the beginning it's like, this guy's no good. This guy is a corporate asshole, and he's gonna like he does not have good intentions, but he's a nice guy. He says all the right things, and you just know the mask is gonna come off, and then you start seeing kind of the anti-Roxxon group. The Underground, led by a new version of the Tinkerer.
Yeah, very different version of the Tinkerer.
Totally different version.
Yeah.
The old school version of the Tinkerer. Let me show you the old school comic version of the Tinkerer and the version of the Tinkerer from just Spider-Man Homecoming. And you're going to be like, wait, what? Like, here's the version of Tinkerer on the left, if you're watching this on video, of the Tinkerer. He's kind of like an old guy who makes like laser cannons. And that's who he looked like in the comic forever. And then he was kind of like a neckbeard in the Spider-Man Homecoming one, and he was taking like the Shatari technology and like fixing him up for the Vulture, and that was the character in Spider-Man Homecoming. So we've seen the Tinker twice already. That's not the Tinker that we get in this game, is it?
No, not at all. Very different.
No, this one is more sleek Daft Punk version.
The Daft Punk Tinker. Here's the Tinker that we get in the game. Is ready to like the Tinker in this game is legit ready to drop that sick beat.
Yeah. Which wait, can we mention some? There is it's very heavily influenced by music. The game also.
Yeah.
That was the other thing too. The music. I remember the swinging mechanics. It starts up that music in the first one, and then this one was like, it's just more hip hop-ish, and it just kind of went along with this flow. Also, like I like that too.
I was just
I really like the general like swinging through the city like background music in this in the Miles Morales game is actually it's kind of it makes the music from the first game kind of feel very pedestrian, and even though and at the time I played the first game, I thought the music was great, but then hearing the music in this game is like, oh, this is so much cooler.
The first game it's like an orchestral, majestic, traditional,
right? Yeah, kind of what you would expect from a superhero score, whereas in Miles Morales,
great like hip hop stuff.
Yeah, I mean they took beats, not beats, but like they took stuff from Into the Spider-Verse.
I definitely heard some motifs from Into the Spider-Verse, just kind of pop in here and there throughout the music, the soundtrack or the score of this game.
Story-wise, I felt like there were several things that were comparable to Into the Spider-Verse. So these will be spoilers for Into the Spider-Verse, but these are all things that happen within the first 10-15% of this game. Right. But you have Roxxon, and Roxxon's developing these generators that, like the generator or the interdimensional weapon in or whatever the Kingpin's doing in Into the Spider-Verse, this stuff is erratic and it can destroy major parts of the city. And towards the end of the game, you start seeing some of that stuff like really starting to become dangerous. So there was a similarity kind of in the threat to the city from Into the Spider-Verse, but it was now coming from Roxxon. And a lot of parts of this game, Miles has to like start infiltrating Roxxon and stuff like that. And I thought those were cool. And he's stuck between the battle between the underground, who are kind of like these Antifa movement, versus like Roxxon, which is like this 1% militarized police thing. So it's almost like this is like a BLM game, and there's literally a mission where
I sent that to you, right?
Yeah, if you accomplish these missions, there's a BLM band. Like I thought it was so cool. So like there's a BLM reward in the game of a Wakandan suit of armor, of a Spidey suit with Wakandan.
Oh, is that what that was?
It's the Wakandan flag colors from the comics. Oh. And the neighborhood that is now warming to Miles makes like a banner that says Black Lives Matter.
It's like a mural, right? Yeah.
It's a mural, yeah.
It's in a game. I was like, this movement is now in a pretty mainstream video game.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
And so, the Underground versus Roxxon is kind of like a BLM versus like an Antifa movement. And I thought it was interesting. And this Tinker, who's the leader of the Underground, is the best version of the Tinker. Especially
because in the comics, he's just like this old guy who makes gear for other villains. Like this, he doesn't really have a whole, he's not a real active character outside of like making cool weapons and stuff for villains in the comic book. So
the villains should have like a really great goal. The villains should have a story of themselves, which is again why Rhino has never been much of a main villain, because like beyond being a dude who got him stupid ass stuck in a Rhino suit, who is he? He loves his wife. He's sometimes Russian. I don't know, but like he doesn't really have that key storyline. As in the Tinker doesn't either. Here, what they've done is they've taken the Tinker, they've given the Tinker a brand new character, and as you keep going through the game, you realize this is easily the best version of the Tinker, and the relationship with Tinker in the city, and Miles in the city, and Miles and the other characters, that stuff gives you those sort of like heartbreak moments that you definitely got with the Doc Ock stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
First game. Again, the writing of this game it shines like crazy. One of the other things that comes out of Into the Spider-Verse that is in this game, and there's a bit in the Ultimate Spider-Man as well, is Miles' relationship with his uncle Aaron, who from Into the Spider-Verse and happens pretty early in this game, is the Prowler. And that's about as far with the spoilers as I want to get. But like having his uncle, like in the Spider-Verse, is also the Prowler. That relationship with Miles not having like a father figure, Peter's gone, so Peter can't be the guide how to be a Spider-Man. Having that relationship with Uncle Aaron, who is a small-time crook, and that was a problem between him and Miles's father, who was a cop. There's still that kind of drama going on, and is another great source in this story. So when Big Yanks over here texts me and is like, I want more, I beat the game a bit before Danny did, and Yanks texts me and is like, I want more Spidey villains. All I could text back was like, hey, just wait, because there's some really great Easter eggs for spider villains in this game, and B, at some point, because I wanted the same thing, at some point I just had to tell myself, oh, that's Peter's Rogues Gallery. You know, the Green Goblin and Doc Ock and Electro and all those traditional Spider-Man villains, those are Peter's villains. This game really is about Miles, and it's about establishing Miles' Rogues Gallery, and that's going to be the Tinkerer and possibly his Uncle Aaron the Prowler and the kind of messed up stuff between that.
Well, and you're right, because I think what happened to me was that when I was texting you, the game was telling me you're 76% done with the game, and I think that has a lot to do with the way I play my games. Is that I do all the side, like I said, I do all the side missions, all that stuff. So everything happened back to back. It was all back ended, like everything came all in a rush, and I was like, oh yeah, now we're going.
Now I'm seeing some villains coming out of the woodwork.
Now we're seeing some good
but
stuff.
I don't think it's a spoiler to say that these are not traditional Peter villains. These are Miles's villains.
These are Miles villains, yeah.
And going forward, I'm excited
who knows
to see
what,
more of these villains.
I'm excited to see what new villains come up that end up being in, like part of his Rogues Gallery, as opposed to just sort of like recycling all of.
And like I don't know any of Miles' stories like that besides Into the Spider-Verse. So like right when I was done, I get my comic books from the library. So I went and like reserved all the Miles books and just waiting for them to come, so I could just now burn through those.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff, and I think that the cast of characters that they had introduced in the first game, Genki wasn't in it, but he's in this game. The Genki relationship was really great, and then having like Rio Morales, his mom, running for public office and kind of putting herself a bit in a public crosshairs when all this stuff is going on, I thought was awesome. If we have Jason Elliott wants to see if any of us played the PS5 version. Justin did play the PS5 version. We'll talk about technical stuff here in a bit, but just real quick to tell you that if you played the first game and you saw that the big explosion at at Mr. Negative's like coming out party in the first game that cost Miles' father his life is the big dramatic turn in like the escalation of the drama in the first game. Here, it's the bridge sequence, and which is as far narratively as I want to talk about it without a spoiler warning. But that's really where Miles realizes the underground is serious, Roxxon's serious, neither of them are on my side, and this bridge gets destroyed. He's saving all these people from falling into the water or blowing up. That sequence is bigger than anything we've seen on the screen with Spider-Man. Like Yanks, you said it. He has to hold the bridge together at some point because you had to have Spider-Man holding the bridge together, or holding back the subway car.
He's holding a subway car, but the Staten Island ferry. It's always that iconic Spider-Man's using the thing.
Yeah, the metaphor of Spider-Man being like,
but doesn't he?
Too many things at once.
But I think it. Can I say it like it doesn't work? Kinda.
What do you mean? Like in this game, he kind of
like he's holding it, but it just like he has to change.
Right. That's exactly. It's kind of on the fly. He has to sort of because.
It's like not everybody was able to move, so it's just
Yeah, he does that jump down and kind of.
Yeah. Once you get to that bridge sequence, you realize like Miles is totally over over his head.
Yes.
And B, you're kind of in it to win it on this game. Like that was the sequence where if I was going to pull an all-nighter, and I definitely almost did with this game, it was because that bridge sequence was so big. It was awesome. So
the game doesn't really slow down after that. I mean, I think because with the first game you had, the story took its time, especially even after kind of like the pivotal moment with Jefferson Davis getting killed.
Real quick, Justin, whenever you put your hands down on something, it's like hitting your
am I like banging?
Yeah.
I'm literally sitting on my hands to avoid that too.
Justin sounds like some of the sound design later in the game when things start exploding. What were you going to say, Justin? Before you joined Stomp?
No, I was just going to say that even after that kind of pivotal moment in the first game, you still sort of have those quieter moments in the story missions, and sort of like it kind of takes a lot of twists and turns that diverge from like the main kind of like you know, barreling towards the ending story. Whereas with Miles Morales, I think there's just like there's
not a lot of fat on it.
There's no patty. There's no fat on it at all. It's just you're just like going in a break.
And even if they are the side missions, they're the neighborhood missions, which is part of Miles like proving that he's this new he's the new Spider-Man for a lot of people. Right. And they are all kind of coming. All those side missions are all reverberations of that main story.
Yeah, they don't feel like extra missions or at all. They feel pretty much like almost like they should just be main story missions because of how key they are to just the themes and sort of the development of his character.
As Jason on Facebook says, I like how they really touch on the inexperience and awkwardness of Miles, and I think they did a great job. And
in the story and the gameplay, even just the way he his web swinging and the way he fights, just has that.
This kid Najee
Jeter, he's kind of learning the ropes.
This kid Najee Jeter, who played him, I think did an amazing job.
Yeah,
everybody. I mean, the performances of these things are awesome, and.
I mean, I fell in love with Miles in the first game. I thought he did such a great job in that even, because I remember going into the first game, already knowing that Miles was going to make an appearance in it and being a little nervous, like, oh, I hope they don't like
shoehorn in.
I hope they don't shoehorn him in and make him the new Spider-Man like halfway through the game, and then you're playing as him, because I really want to just like have a game that focuses on Peter Parker. And by the end of that game, I was like, oh, I wish you got to play as Miles in this game, because he was such a great character. Like by the end of the game, I loved Miles as a character so much, which is something that Bendis wasn't able to make me do for 7 years of writing in the comics.
How dare you, sir?
So you're saying Justin don't read the Miles comics?
No, I mean they're good. I always liked Miles Morales, and I read like all the Ultimate comic books, once he became Spider-Man, I continued reading them and read all of his storylines, but it just never quite clicked with me, because he never felt like they never really developed him beyond the fact like, okay, like this is the new Spider-Man, and he's doing it for reasons.
Right now,
yeah. They're definitely worth reading, but I just I do feel like Bendis kind of missed the boat as far as really developing him as like his own person, as opposed to just being like, hey, here's for lack of a better phrasing, here's the black version of Peter Parker, basically. Black Latino, yes, sorry, black Latino version.
I actually
half this Geekscape episode is Latino, Justin. My half and all of Danny
and all of me.
So this episode has as much Latino in it as Miles Morales himself. We need you to be.
And I'm technically Afro-Latino. Dominicans are.
Both
Dominicans are Afro-Latino.
Yeah. Oh, you're 100% plantains is what you is. Paul Jones on Facebook says, even in the early part of the game, you can see how he is so new at this. Absolutely, like he's completely out of his element, and it's really. I mean, it gives a character a place to go. So. Going back to Jason's earlier comment about like the technical stuff, the PS5. Let's talk about the PS5. Let's talk about the PS4. This game, I think, it felt like the game was announced really quickly, and it felt like it was part of a thin release slate for the PS5. I was worried playing this game. I wanted to wait for the PS5 to play this game. I was able to get a code for the PS4 to play the game early, or not early, just to play the game. And I you know what? When a code fell in my lap to play this game on the PS4, after telling myself I'd wait for the PS5, I wasn't going to pass up a code. So thank you.
Did that code also give you the free PS5 version?
Well, with the PS5 version, it's you buy it and you can up-res it. You can just kind of like, I think you can port it. So we'll find out. Once you beat the game, there's still 1 or 2 suits that you need to unlock, and there's some things that you can do when you replay through the game again. I'm going to save my second playthrough for a PS5 version.
Yeah, the PS5.
All the save and everything will come. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's tied into your PSN.
Yes.
So when I get the PS5, I'll port the thing up and hopefully be able to replay through the game and unlock those additional suits and things. But on a technical level, I know that it felt like the game was put together pretty fast, and we'll talk about like our favorite glitches once we start talking spoilers. There's some glitches that were hilarious. But Justin, you played on the PS5. What were some of like the differences between what you felt on the PS5 Miles Morales and like the stuff that you felt when you played the PS4 Spider-Man version?
Well, definitely the obviously being touted as the ray tracing lighting technology that they have on the PS5 where, it's like real-time reflections and shadows versus the PS4 version, which I can't remember the term, but what it uses to sort of like mimic reflections on windows. But like it's that just kind of adds another layer of immersion to it, I think. It's not like, I wouldn't say it's a huge leap as far as the graphics go, because I think, it's not a game that was developed specifically for the PS5. I think they were developing both the PS4 and PS5 versions at the same time.
I think they developed the majority of the game on the PS4.
Yeah, on the PS4, and then kind of upgraded
when the dev
for the
kit
PS5.
was available, they could add
Right.
a couple of the more cool technical bits.
So yeah, but I mean, some of the cool stuff, obviously, with the controller is, the haptic feedback on the triggers. So when you're web swinging, like you feel like at the end of your, as Miles shoots his web out, like at the end of the trigger pull, you kind of feel resistance to it, which sort of
that's awesome.
It's like, it's meant to mimic, kind of like feeling the resistance of the webs as you're swinging.
That is amazing.
Which is pretty cool. I mean,
that's really cool.
Does it in execution, it doesn't work as well as it sounds, but it still works pretty well. Like it's definitely a cool touch that they.
It saves me from going out with a bungee cable and jumping off a roof.
Yeah.
So like, I was like, I'm gonna find a bridge. I'm gonna get a jump, like a bungee cable, jump out. I gotta start web slinging, and I guess I'll just wait for the PS5 before I kill myself. What about like the audio or anything like that? Because you also played through a little bit of the remastered version of the first game.
Yeah, I played the remastered version of the first game, which, because the Miles Morales came with a code for that. So I loaded that up. And even though I'd already played the first game like through 3 times through.
Oh my God.
I started like another playthrough on the
New Game Plus
version.
Plus.
Right,
New Game Plus. And one of the funny things that like the internet was really pissed off about was that they redid Peter's face and made him look younger. As soon as he puts the Spider-Man mask on, it's Yuri to me. I'm just like, it's Yuri Lowenthal in mask for me.
I was worried because I saw like a screenshot of it and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, and because they got an actor who kind of looks a little bit like Tom Holland, so you can't help thinking like, oh, that this was sort of like a cynical, calculated move by Sony, like, oh, we need to have like synergy between our various Peter Parkers, but he really doesn't. Once you see it in action, like it kind of makes sense. And I think it works. Like I didn't think that the like face actor or whatever, the model that they used for the original Peter Parker was like perfect.
Sure.
Anyway, so
in this version, you only see his face for a few seconds. Like Peter's not in the game a whole lot, but he is in the mask the majority of the time. This is Miles's game,
right? But in the remastered version of the first game, they've replaced the original face model with the new Peter Parker for the whole game. So that like if you play through that, then you're basically playing through the whole first game with a completely different Peter Parker, which I thought would be more distracting than it ended up being. Once I started playing it, it took me about like 2 minutes to be like, oh, okay, this is now Peter Parker, and I'm fine with that.
I kind of like the fact, and I know the game is like $50 and it's way shorter than the first game, but I kind of needed a short game that was just kind of fun, and it was sweet and over and done, and I got to thoroughly enjoy and explore the whole thing, and I feel like I'm thoroughly satisfied until I play through it again and until the sequel comes out.
Yeah.
Danny, what were the technical differences on the overheating of your PS4 between this version and the first game?
Okay, so anybody who has a PS4 knows how incredibly loud that thing gets if you're playing like a very heavy game. And I guess since this was a lighter game, it just triggered to me that I never heard the super fan go on. I didn't feel like my PS4 was gonna fly away on me. And like when I shut it off, it actually shut off. It didn't stay on still afterwards.
Like revving its engines.
It's just wild. Is how loud. One time I was playing, my wife was like, "Where's the vacuum?" The vacuum. I was like, "No, that's the PS4."
She goes and starts cooking an egg on it.
Yeah. Oh God. And I have it in a little thing, like a little cubby thing too. I can only imagine.
That doesn't help. You got to keep it out and like let it air out. You're just like putting stuff on it.
It's fine. No, the back of it is like open, so it's not bad.
And just your PS5 looks like in like 3 cable modems wrapped up.
It's gigantic. It's a beast.
Where do you put that freaking thing?
It's in the same place in my TV stand that the PS4 was in, but it takes up it barely fits in there. I was worried that it wasn't going to fit in at all, but there's just not.
Can't have any Blu-rays anymore.
Yeah. I don't have any games stacked up next to it.
The PS4 barely fits into the little cubby I have, and the TV is just as big as the stand. So I definitely have to buy a whole new TV stand before I get the PlayStation 4.
I think I'm going to replace a piece of furniture with the PS5.
The one other thing I forgot to mention about the technical differences between the PS4 and PS5 too is the load times or the complete lack of thereof on the PS5 version, that's probably the coolest thing about playing it on the PS5 is that literally you turn the game on from the main home screen of the PS5. If you go to start playing Miles Morales and literally it's 5 seconds from the time that it starts up to you're in the game.
Wait, you don't like reading the Spidey facts?
Pretty cool.
I like the Spidey facts. What I really love is when you do the fast travel. I like the animations on the subway, and I wish there were a few more.
That I kind of miss actually, because there's no load time on fast traveling in Miles Morales. I kind of miss the subway. I wish even if it's shorter, just show it for a couple seconds. I kind of wish, even though they don't need to have it.
On the PS4, they're there. They're not
there, yeah.
But they're not as long as the ones from the first.
And I feel like I got the same ones a lot, but I always still crack. It's 3, right? The on top of the train, the invisible, and then it's almost like I don't know if you guys know about the Showtime players in the subways, the guys that They kind of do that, but
Miles does a backflip and then turns around he's like anybody.
Yeah, that's the Showtime kids in the subway. That's a thing.
So go ahead, Danny.
I was gonna say the invisible one always cracks me up because everybody just keeps bumping into him, and he's like, "What?" Playing into the fact that he doesn't even realize he's invisible.
Yeah, nobody. So Geekscape.
I missed out on those.
If you have not played the game, we're about to get to the part where we're gonna start throwing some spoilers at you. So I'm gonna go ahead and if you're watching the show, I'm going to go ahead. What was that?
My knuckles. Sorry, I let my hands go.
Are you throwing stuff right here? So I'm going to go ahead and issue for y'all a bit of a spoiler warning here. So if you're listening, watching this, and you have not played the game, again, I think the story is amazing. We're about to go into the story, and that means the second half of the story, the post-bridge sequence, where this is where the real story guts start coming out. And the choices for Miles on a personal level start getting really bad. and you got to have that in a Spider-Man game. And again, this is as hard. Some of the stuff in this game was as heart-wrenching as some of the stuff in the first game. But now it's happening to Miles. And he's not as old as Peter. He's 17 years old. And some of this stuff is really bad. So I'm going to tell you all right now, it's time for a spoiler warning. We're going to be talking bugs that were hilarious. We're going to be talking definitely about the story. We're going to be talking about post-credit scenes leading into ideally, hopefully, please, the next Spider-Man game. Spider-Man
2099.
Spider-Man 2099 versus Morbius versus we're going to be talking spoilers. So basically is what I want to tell you. So this is your chance to bail if you don't want spoilers. Nobody's really bailing. I'm going to leave the spoiler warning up on the video.
It's such a short game. They could have beat it in their sleep and not even realize.
I was amazed that I beat the game as quickly as I did, and I was glad because I had to get back to work.
I remember when we were texting each other, and you're like, I have to get back to work, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna beat it now before Thursday. I loaded it up. I was at the last mission already. I didn't even realize.
Yeah. I stayed up till 2 a.m. beating this game.
Well, I remember you texted me and Ian. You were like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna have any time to play this for a week," and then
3 days later,
couple hours later, you were like, I can't wait. I gotta play it now. I'm making the time to play this game."
When Jonathan's producer is late giving him notes, Jonathan doesn't have work to do, so Jonathan will play Spider-Man, and he will love it. And then the next day he'll be like, "Why am I so tired?" "Oh, because you don't stay up till 2 a.m. anymore." so let's talk some spoilers. Where do we want to go with this? Do we want to start with a little bit of the glitches, or do we want to start getting into the overall story? Because we can go any way with this.
Yeah, let's just
start story.
Getting
story. So the Tinker is Miles's distant best friend who he grew up with, who is a gender swap on the character. A character now known as Finn Mason, and she grew up with Peter. They go to two different high schools now. The high schools for genius people because they're
Miles.
Yeah. Which the old man Tinker is known as Finn Mason as well. They actually gave her the same name as the original white old dude Tinker.
So now we have like a Finn Mason. It's like if Big Yanks right now became like a supervillain for me. Like they've known each other almost their entire lives, and then these trusted friends who've kind of grown distantly. She, because of the death of her, the Roxxon was responsible for the death of some of its employees because it has this new chemical compound that it's using for energy in its reactors. And Finn and her brother discover that it is making people sick and killing them. So she goes all Aaron Brockovich, and she and her brother like go into the lab, and her brother gets stuck in one of these reactors, and she watches as Simon Krieger totally shuts this thing down and closes him in there, and he gets evaporated and killed. And she survives, but she has a complete vendetta against Roxxon. And so she joins the underground, becomes the Tinkerer, and uses her brilliant science and technical abilities to build these, what were they, like smart matter weapons that you get a smart matter suit later in the game.
Yeah, that was
like programmable matter type.
You could like use like smart matter, like you could make a sword out of stuff, or you could like make a shield, and later Spider-Man gets like a suit that just like grows on him, and it was kind of cool. But
now, the finisher.
But she's like part of this terrorist group in New York that is going around, and you're busting up some of their bases, and you're stealing some of their equipment to level your stuff up. But like she's one of the things that you have to stop. The Tinker, you have to stop her, because her big goal at the end of the game is to destroy Roxxon Plaza, which is about to launch this generator. She's going to overload the generator and destroy Roxxon Plaza, but it's so unstable that Miles has done the math, and he's like, "You're going to destroy Harlem." And the game builds to this showdown,
right? Which by then though doesn't trust him anymore because he lied. Yeah, she's too far gone, and B, he lied to her about being Spider-Man and about pretending to want to be a part of the group. So that created a rift between them. That then when he's there to tell her the truth and kind of lay some truth on her, she's not ready to hear it because it's
pretty awesome.
I actually love that mission's name, Tinker Tailor Spider Spy.
That was cool. Yeah,
yeah. You kind of I like that.
They've always been pretty good with the mission names with the Spider-Man game. The first one too had some clever names for the.
I love the earlier mission where you and your uncle team up to go into Roxxon and like find out the clues of what's going on and really find out what happened to Finn's brother. Miles goes in there to get Finn's cell phone and gets caught. And the Prowler shows up and is like, "Hey, it's me, your Uncle Aaron. Let's get you out of here." And I love that team up storyline. I always like the family stuff because it's at the heart of what Spider-Man is. And it's complicated because the dude is technically a villain. And you find out later he's working for Roxxon, and he sets them up. And when you put the Rhino away early in the game, you realize all Roxxon did was take the Rhino for themselves, give it a crap ton of new technology empowered by Roxxon, and you got to fight the Rhino again. And that was one of the harder fights in the game because it was so chaotic. And so you and the Tinker you got to jump on the Rhino, lead him into tanks to explode him and weaken his armor. There's parts of the Rhino's ripping up stuff and throwing it. I love the puzzle stuff in the game. That's always been a strength of this game, and the one before it was there's a lot of puzzle stuff where you got to figure out rooms and you got to figure out how to use your brain a little bit, which is tough for me. But you got to figure out how to use Spidey's smart, whether it's Peter or Miles, to like solve the room or stop the timer from going down or something from exploding. I always love those missions. The battles, the fights, sometimes you had to find those strategies too. Especially that Rhino fight, because the Rhino's super souped up, and you got to figure out how to trick him into running into tanks.
Rhino 2.0.
And weaken himself. That was awesome. And then once you're done with that mission, the Tinker Tailor Spider Spy, whatever you called it, then it's just about stopping Finn. And the generator is going off, and you got to chase her through the city, chase her up Roxxon Tower. And she has remember in like video games when like maybe a villain had like 1 or 2 forms, and then
like 5, yeah,
5 or 6.
Yeah, she beats the shit out of you. Yeah.
The fight keeps going. You got to beat the shit out of Spider-Man because it's the only way to get his mask torn up. You can't have Spider-Man at the end of anything with his mask on. The mask has to be looking like your 6-month-old underwear, your 6-year-old underwear, and it's got to be hanging off his face so you can see Spider-Man's face. If you're not seeing Peter or Miles' face by the end of the mission, it's not the end of the game.
Right.
So yeah, Finn beats the shit out of Peter. They're fighting on this rooftop, and you realize this is to the death. These friends who grew up together, this is to the death. And before that mission, you had a walk through memory lane sequence where you see them as younger kids at a science fair.
Well, at the same building. That's how he knew to go there.
Yeah, and it really like that mission, you see them younger, tugs at your heartstrings.
Yeah.
I thought it was a filler mission, and then I started playing it, and I realized it was beautiful and awesome.
And
you get the
awesome,
Doc Ock.
Yeah, Doc Ock and Peter. Well, yeah, and
you get
Peter
a cameo.
Cameo.
You get a cameo of a younger
in happier days. Yeah.
And then after spending this mission in the Osborne Science Center, reliving the good times with your old friend, y'all have to basically fight to the death on Roxxon Plaza. It's like if Justin had to put down Ian. Like he's completely outmatched.
Yeah, I don't know Krav Maga, so
you'd have to outsmart him. You'd have to outsmart him, and that's what you got to do in this one. The end of the game, the reactor is going off. Finn realizes she was wrong. They're both about to die. The reactor starts go like round, like it's overheating like Big Yanks' PS4.
Yeah, it was those loud pulsations. Like
it's about to destroy Harlem. They've both completely fallen off this building and smashed themselves on the ground. And because he's Spider-Man, Miles can't give up, and he sees this thing about to overheat, and he gets up, starts crawling to this this reactor, and he sucks the reactor energy into himself. And Finn, in her dying kind of like moments, sees the comparison between like Miles at the reactor and her brother at the reactor, has a little bit of a flashback, and realizes Miles is there trying to save the city that she put in danger. Mm-hmm. And she gets up. Miles has absorbed all this energy. He can't hold it. He's about to explode. And she's like, I'm going to get you clear of Harlem. And talk about that last moment.
When she's just like, it's like that Pietà moment where she's like holding him.
They've like raced up into the building. They're up in the sky. And he's like, I can't hold on. She goes, let go. And Jonathan's like, there's a tear coming down his face. Someone's going to die. And it was awesome.
Yeah, there were definitely tears.
Yeah,
I'm being facetious, but did you actually cry?
Yeah, no, I wasn't like bawling, but I definitely, because it snuck up on me, because that, like the emotional impact of it, it just kind of like, because I went from being like just really pissed because I'm getting my ass kicked by Tinkerer like repeatedly, and every time I think the fight's gonna end, I just
which we'll get back to.
So by the end of that fight, I'm just like, I just want to kill her.
I want to kill the 17-year-old girl.
And then that
rage
happened.
quit.
I was like, all right, that was very touching.
No, yeah, I got to that point. I was like,
God
damn it, they got me.
That fight was endless. It was
nonstop.
Iterations. It's like, if I'm not dodging missiles flying at me, I'm now dodging like saw blades coming at me. It doesn't help to cloak because you need
it doesn't do
you need all this
good,
different stuff. Like it doesn't.
Oh yeah, my third try I cloaked.
You're constantly like not having enough venom power because you're having to use it to just heal yourself. So that was a tough one.
But I kind of love that it was dragged out, and I love that it was strategic. I love that each iteration of those fights were different. There was a part where you had to fight across a distance. There were parts where you had to fight up close. There were parts where you had to dodge a lot, and there were fights where you had to get in there and just use combos. Yeah. And I liked how each iteration of that fight felt like a bit of another fight, and I liked it. And I like fighting just like when the city was going haywire, when Harlem's going haywire, you're fighting on the streets and you're fighting on the rooftops. Yeah. And there's parts on the rooftops and there's parts on the streets, and so you have a really dynamic ending to this game. In the game,
it was pretty much like using the different the combat missions from Hollow Spidey, and like with the combo of each different Venom special, the Venom Punch, the Venom Blast, and the Venom Jump.
I immediately, upon finishing the game, I texted Yuri and I said, listening to you as Tooms when he starts doing the vulture stuff and without one training mission, I was dying laughing. I could barely play the damn mission. I was laughing so bad.
Yeah, that was great.
That's the only other classic Spider-Man villain really in the gameplay is you get the Rhino and you get a version of the Vulture, which was super satisfying at that moment. I thought it was
was a fun mission.
So the game ends, you save Harlem, but your friend Finn is probably dead, probably blown up. And I thought that this was actually the most touching part of the game is when Miles falls to the earth and you have a news reporter come out and the neighborhood has gotten together and his mom and everybody has gotten together. They know Miles is Spider-Man. They put his mask back on. And then when the news reporter tries to get access to him, they let Miles leave and they say, "Did you see his face?" And they're like, "No. We don't know who that was." Like the whole neighborhood is now has Miles's back.
Yeah, it was great because it was a little bit of a callback to Raimi's to Spider-Man 2,
the
subway, which was a great scene. So it was a little bit of a callback to that, but had its own twist. Being that he's in finally like this neighborhood has finally adopted him and accepted him as their Spider-Man.
And then you see the mural again, and the mural has Miles on it. The mural from the opening scene of the game. Now the neighborhood has painted Miles onto it, and you see the Deaf Girl, and you know that he and Deaf Girl are going to have that's going down. That is going down. Like that was some Flirt City on that side mission, and once you get to the credits, which I think that song, like I don't know Jaden Smith, like
I recognize Jaden Smith
that song is awesome.
I'm ready. Yeah. I'm ready, something like that.
That song is awesome. And the montage song where he and Genki are making like the It's My Time, when he and Genki are making the new suits and you have Miles running up the freaking side of the building. That was like a cinematic montage, dude.
I think that's another Jaden Smith song for it.
Whatever it is, I'm now a Jaden Smith fan. I'm going to get like a face tattoo and everything. So the game is awesome. The story was awesome. The end credit scene. At the end of the end credits, we go back to characters from Spider-Man 1. And we start with a POV scene in like a back to tank. We know it's Harry. If you played the first game, we know it's Harry with Venom on him. Because he's looking down and you see the Venom symbiote on him.
Oh, is that what that was?
That's the
Danny, stick with us, please. I'm invited you on here.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't remember
He's got the goo on him. Remember when he and MJ sneaks in the office and finds Harry, and Harry's got the symbiote on him because he had the illness, and really he was just secreted away by his father. So in Harry's POV, you get two Spider-Man villains. His father comes in as Norman and is like, "Get my son out of the tank. I'm sick of him. Like he's awake. Get him out of the tank." And he turns to Kurt Connors, who's doing the science experiment on him.
Oh, right. That's Kurt Connors. Yeah.
It was freaking Kurt Connors. He's missing the arm, the whole thing. So Peter comes back. He says, "Miles, you did a great job. You did a great job. Like Miles, this is awesome. You took care of the city." And you see them swing off together. I immediately text Justin, who I knew beat the game. And I was like, "Justin, that next game, you and me, co-op, baby. Miles and Peter playing together. We're going to be facing some Venom. We're going to be facing some Norman Osborn Green Goblin. We're going to be facing some Kurt Connors Lizard. Beyond.
So do you think we're going to get Peter Parker? Do you think the symbiote is going to attach itself to Peter Parker in the next game, and we're going to get maybe a little
Black Suit Spider-Man,
or are they just going to go right into? Can't imagine they're just going to go right into like Venom being the villain without first.
No, I think you have to have a big Norman. I think Norman has to be like the villain of the second game. Obviously, there's going to be a huge rogues gallery.
Right.
You've got Kurt Connors there. You've got some version of Venom there. Let's actually frame it like this.
Is that a cat?
It's
I thought it was a symbiote behind him, Justin.
Me? No, that's my dog. Yeah. She's decided she wants to.
I just saw like thing pop. I was like, is that a symbiote right now?
Listen, Danny, you of all people should know that this is still an audio product. Okay, the audio listeners don't know that there's a dog behind Justin, so please just ignore it. All right, we're not. I'm not going to call out to the audio listeners that you're you're in like a baby room right now, a nursery right now. All right,
a nursery in progress.
A nursery in progress. So you're not just like we're not going to tell the listeners that when you get your baby and it looks suspiciously like me, that like you're not going to be worried about that. Okay, so it comes out looking like Ian Kerner. It comes out.
I would be.
Then you need to worry. Yeah,
the baby does the baby does a backflip and starts doing Krav Maga. So I think we should reframe it like this, like knowing those post-credit scenes, and then I love obviously the Spider Cat mission at the end of that stuff. What do you want in a Spider-Man sequel? I want co-op, obviously. I think that's one that they're hinting at.
Co-op, yeah.
I think co-op would definitely be cool. I mean, I think at the very least what we're going to get in the next game is the story missions kind of alternating between you playing as Peter Parker and playing as Miles.
If you don't have friends.
Right, if you don't have friends.
But if you and I are playing together,
then it's
we can maybe tackle those missions together.
Yeah, but I don't know. I wonder if they're going to do something where like, the symbiote attaches itself to Peter, and then eventually kind of.
Or Miles has to take Peter down.
That starts going sideways, so Miles has to take Peter down, or like bring him out of it, and
out of black suit,
save him from the symbiote. I could totally see that happening.
Michael Cook on Facebook says co-op is a must, dude. We agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
If anybody at Insomniac is listening to this and co-op is not in the plans,
got to give us some co-op.
We got to get the co-op going. Story wise, I think Norman's got to be the big bad.
Yeah, they got to bring us.
At least
you got to have Green Goblin. Yeah, you can't. Yeah.
We got ourselves. Michael Cook says they dropped enough breadcrumbs for an eventual superior Spider-Man. Doc Ock is still alive in this universe. Like Doc Ock is still there. Doc Ock was the original superior Spider-Man with that one storyline I know Justin loved, where there was a brain swap between Peter and Doc Ock, and Peter was stuck in Doc Ock's dying body.
Yeah.
You love that storyline. You love that.
I have to confess I hated Superior Spider-Man.
You love that Dan Slott storyline. In the comics, Doc Ock is dying. He kidnaps Peter. He mind swaps Peter, leaves Peter in the dying Doc Ock old man body, and then he takes over Peter's body and goes around running rampantly.
That's one of those stories that would have been like a fun, like what if they did the what ifs in the 80s and 70s.
Or Ultimate Spider-Man. Don't forget like Ultimate Spider-Man. Right before they introduced Miles Morales and Ultimate Spider-Man, it felt like Bendis was kind of over it. He did a mind swap with Wolverine Spider-Man issue. Do you remember that?
I think I vaguely remember that. Yeah,
it could have been one issue, two-parter, and it was like Wolverine shows up at Peter's school, and they get hit in the head or something, and they mind swap, and it didn't work. It was clear that book needed an injection of a new character, and it was Miles.
Yeah, Miles came just in time for that.
Okay, so co-op. I think the superior Spider-Man suit for sure. That's a pretty cool design. Whether or not we have Doc Ock,
the suit, I'm
mind swapping with Peter is one thing. I don't think Mr. Negative is on the board anymore. I think he died in the first game. Do we remember this?
I don't remember if he died, but I think
don't remember either.
Done. Yeah, I don't know where you.
Obviously, the Magia is the Magia is taken out from the first game, and Mr. Negative's forces are done in this game. Black Cat, we could have Black Cat as a playable character. I think the playable characters are Miles and Peter.
Yeah, I don't think we need.
We could. Uncle Aaron is still out there. We could have a Prowler out there. We could have the integration of some of Miles' rogues into Peter's world, and vice versa. Some of the lackeys, like Electro, obviously the Rhino, they're still out there. Who are some of the Spider-Man villains you have not seen in these games that you would like to see?
We only got a guy dressed up as Mysterio. We haven't had Mysterio in the games, which I could see them doing some cool stuff with Mysterio, kind of in the vein of what they did with Scarecrow in like the Arkham games.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, that would be awesome.
So that would be I think he would be a cool villain to introduce to add some new gameplay elements to it.
We didn't get did we get a Sandman? We didn't get
I was just gonna say
Sandman. I mean, he's got such a huge got such a huge rogues gallery. There's
Sandman would be cool. I mean, you've got a Hobgoblin. But obviously we have yet to see the Green Goblin, so right. I think the Green Goblin is going to be a part of the next game.
Yeah. What I would like to see them do in the next game is have some of the random crimes that you have to encounter be like kind of random villain encounters. So not necessarily have every villain you face be like a big story moment, but just kind of weave it in, more organically with, so you're not always just like fighting thugs. So maybe like, oh, hey, like Vulture is attacking an armored car and you got to swing in and fight the Vulture for like
Michael
a quick little like
Facebook,
mini, like
he suggests the spot would be fun.
Yeah.
The spot.
How about leapfrog?
Leapfrog would be great.
Leapfrog in there.
The Gibbon.
Stilt man.
I've got myself another villain in mind, Craven the Hunter.
Oh, he'd be a good one.
Craven the Hunter would be cool because he should be inescapable, really. Like you almost have to like there would be like a hiding element added to the game if Craven's in it.
You don't think Craven would be more of a main bad guy?
Yeah, I do think Craven would be more of a bad guy. But if you played through the DLC on the first game, you understand like Hammerhead and the Magi were kind of that or the whole thing. And I also loved their treatment of Tombstone or whatever it's called.
Tombstone
he was pretty good.
Yeah.
And they hinted at it in missions here, and you also saw the Kingpin come back in one of the side missions. He didn't have audio in my glitch, but he showed up on the monitor and started going, like mouthing a bunch of stuff, and luckily I had subtitles.
You didn't miss a lot. It was like 4 lines, I thought.
I know. It was just enough for it to be like, cool, this is the same universe. And
who are you?
You jerks are still having fun on the raft. I can't wait for the next raft revolt and for the villains to get escape. You know what? Like, I think that's just some advice for the police in this game world. Stop transporting people through Manhattan.
It's an island. Like you can't just fly around the perimeter of it to get to the raft. They got to
transport them through New Jersey. That way, if criminals get out in New Jersey, nobody's going to be down the wiser. The whole place is full of criminals. But Danny, you live in Manhattan, or you live in New York and work in Manhattan. Like, how often do you see the criminals transports going through Manhattan?
On the Long Island Railroad every day.
Yeah, every time Trump comes to town, you see so we have it's okay. So I think that you're right. Like the DLC on the first game, we got a little bit of Hammerhead being a bit of the villain. I like the inner workings of villains in some of the side quests. I do love the neighborhood quests on this one. All right, co-op I think is the big one though that we're circling.
Yeah,
we do not want to see like Scream, or I don't think we want to see Carnage. I don't think we want to see who's the one that we love in the books right now, Rigor Mortis, or what's going on in the books right now. Justin, you and I.
Kindred.
No, we don't want Kindred. But knowing that Sony has a Morbius movie coming out with Jared Leto, like Morbius wouldn't be bad.
Yeah,
the Living Vampire would be cool.
As long as they don't bring back the what's her name? The missions. What were from the first game? The
Black Cat.
What's her name? No, the one who was like the
TV girl.
Yeah. There's no
social media. Like
I'm down with Taskmaster, who everybody's gonna love after the Black Widow movie.
The Taskmaster stuff was great. Yeah,
I totally forgot about that TV girl wanting to be popular. Get those likes.
So annoying.
We're gonna. If anybody from Insomniac is listening right now,
please, no more of those.
Call them.
But who's Danica?
But I did like the podcasts on this one.
Danica's from the comics too. She's a character. And
that stuff was
fun. I think she was introduced in Ultimate Spider-Man, but yeah, she's.
I love that Miles when they auto played Jameson. He's like, "What a masochist! Who would have this auto play?"
Yeah,
I like that you can turn those off, the podcast off in this game.
I left it on.
Oh yeah, Justin, you turn those off?
Not immediately, but after a while, like by the time I beat the game, I was like, I needed to I didn't want to keep hearing them.
I want to meet Jared in the next game. The guy who Jameson keeps.
That poor guy, his poor assistant, man.
I've been Jared many times.
So much abuse.
Okay, so let's talk about this game that is still getting updates, and let's talk about our favorite bugs.
Oh yeah, there's some good ones.
Let's talk about their favorite bugs. For me, like I just said, the Kingpin didn't have any audio when he shows up on the monitor in that side mission. That was fun. Our friend Herschel Bailey says screwball. I don't know.
Screwball, yes,
Screwball?
thank you,
Yeah.
Herschel. Yeah,
Screwball. We want screwball.
No more screwball. Yeah.
Screw off screwball. We don't want any
I
more
think
of
that's
that.
pretty universal too. I think most people who even like this, the biggest fans of that game were.
I think the voice
in
actor,
agreement that
the voice
Screwball
actors
is
would
not-
like to come back.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
but let's maybe give those.
Just give her a different role or something.
Give her a different role. She did a great job, but I don't know if we need it. So here are the glitches I got. First off, towards the end of the game, web slinging, and like once shit really started hitting the fan, stuff started getting really, really iffy on me. A couple of the missions where that one mission mainly where you have to like follow Finn, the Tinker, web slinging through New York. It was like Finn got away. I was like, yeah, because he started glitching like Max Headroom. I couldn't figure out, like it was going, and then obviously there's that one scene, that one mission we loved where he teams up with his uncle to escape Roxxon, and his uncle goes, "Get through the hole," and they escape through the hole, and it's just one of those missions where they're going to keep pouring bad guys on you until you fail or figure out jump through the hole. After I'd beaten that mission, there's a little cutscene with Uncle Aaron, the Prowler. And then you're dumped back on the streets of New York to like explore and do some side missions again. But I kept hearing, "Get to the hole, get to the hole, get to the hole." A reset of the game fixed it.
Yeah, I had a few. I've had my web swinging where all of a sudden the sound of him shooting his webs and swinging would get like really muted. Yeah, where you just could it would be a lot quieter than everything else, so you could barely hear the web swinging. I had a few things where he just get like you do like a normal web swing, but then Miles just gets catapulted like three blocks for no reason, like it like warps.
Like a bullet. Did any of y'all try to get to the raft? I tried go. I
didn't try to do it. Yeah,
it's outside of the game
it.
map. Yeah, you can't get on that bridge. You can't go to the map.
On the map, it's not shaded. It makes it look like you can go there.
Right. When you highlight that burrow,
yeah,
that portion of the map, the raft gets highlighted. So I was like, I'm going to try and go to the raft.
I'm going to try to go to the raft. Maybe there's.
I'm going to try and break out Electro and have some fun. Nope, you can't get to the raft. So, so don't play with us. Some of the cool places that I found. Did you find the Stanley statue?
I found the Stanley statue. Yeah,
there's a statue of Stan Lee that was amazing. And then if you go to your father's grave,
I didn't do that yet, but I heard about that.
Aunt May's grave for the first game. You can get a trophy there, Danny. So when you go to try and get those trophies, go and
I got that trophy.
Find that one. Okay.
And I got best prize in town for Stan Lee.
What are some of the other kinks? I heard one where Peter just suddenly turns into a lamppost. Like Spider-Man turns into a lamppost every now and then.
Yeah, he could turn into a lamppost of a brick.
I had the floating head. Glitch.
What is that? You're just playing normally? He just doesn't have a body?
Oh, yeah. I was playing in the feast section, and when it's between, he changes his clothes from Spider-Man to Miles, and it's just the head.
It's just Miles' head.
It's just Miles' head, like just walking, talking to the feast girl, and that. You're like, okay. I had a different audio glitch. I had whenever you had to power down the generators, that high tech noise is just continuously follows me everywhere I went.
As your
Danny, that was your PS4.
I wish it was the PS4. I was like, what is that? What's going on? My daughter's like,
what's that burning smell?
Oh, please don't. I don't think I have fire
insurance. I did fall through the street once, walking Miles the street, and then just fell into water underneath the street where it was like you're in the ocean.
Why would you even walk? You're Spider-Man.
Yeah.
What were you doing walking around?
I think it was a mission where you're playing as Miles, so like I had to walk.
He's high-fiving everybody.
I do like that there are some quick time event stuff with people on the street that you can like high five them, take selfies with them, and stuff like that.
I had this. Go ahead.
No, I don't have any more.
I had the other glitch where when you were saying like, oh, these were super long battles. I had those super long battles, but at some point I didn't know if it was just that hard or the game was glitching for me. Because they would just be ridiculously long. I'm like, well, I don't understand what's going on. Like I'll be beating her up, and then all of a sudden, I kept getting this cutscene of her swinging me around. Like it decided,
I don't think
like,
that was a bug because that happened to me too, and I think it's
that final Tinker battle had a lot of cutscenes in it. That was a long fight. It was awesome though. It was the end of the game.
No, it was, but it just kept confusing me where I kept seeing the same cutscene like 5 times. I'm like,
That's you getting your ass kicked. Figure out the level, bro.
No, I wasn't getting my ass kicked. It would be right after the Venom punch, and then all of a sudden it's a cutscene of me trying to swing away, and she pulls me back in.
Listen, you were the last one to complete this game. I think you were having a tough time with it. All right? Like, you got to get on the level. All right, pal? Here's the thing. Do we want DLC for the game? I mean, I would love it. Why not?
I wouldn't say no to it. Yeah, because
I wouldn't say no. I want free DLC because it wasn't worth $50.
No, I think, like I said earlier, I think it was exactly worth $50 because it was a nice bite-sized adventure, and it was exactly as long as I needed it to be, as busy as we are.
You're over there the whole day negotiating.
Felt like it was, I could have used a little more kind of setup and a little more story. I didn't mind that it was a much shorter story than the first game, and that it was much like more focused. But it did at times feel a little rushed. Like if I'm going to give any kind of like criticism to it, the story did feel a little rushed at one time. I wanted it to take its time a little bit more with kind of setting up your relationship with his Uncle Aaron, where it feels like okay, you do a quick mission where you see him for the first time and he's working, in the subway, with the subway system, and you do that thing, and then all of a sudden the next time you talk to him, it's like, oh, he knows you're Spider-Man, and he's the Prowler. It's like just like that whole thing just gets like thrown at you.
It's like
really
meeting
quick.
somebody at FurryCon, like, and you're like, oh, we've met before.
Yeah,
you just went ahead and told me all that, huh?
Yeah.
But they try to bring you back with the cassette mission.
Yeah, that kind of like, they did a good job at least with those kind of the side stuff that allowed you to kind of flesh out those relationships a little bit more and get more information. But yeah, and I only say it because I loved the story and so much and thought the characters were so well done that I just wanted, I wanted more of it. I wanted it to take its time a little bit more, the way the first game, took its time. But obviously
that was $10 or $20 extra dollars there, Justin.
Right, and it would have been another year of development probably for the game. So I'm glad it came out when it did, and I'm not complaining about it. I just feel like it was. I'd be happy with
a little bit more DLC, but the thing that will make me happiest is that this game series goes to what we all think is the natural evolution, which is a co-op follow-up game, full game. With Peter and Miles, just
Spider-Verse PS5,
mm-hmm. Where you play as Screwball. I'm kidding. Or Screwball is the main villain. Anything last thoughts y'all have on the game as we wrap up the Spider-Man Miles Morales special?
No, it's a great game. Everybody should, especially if you're a Spider-Man fan, everybody should play it. It's easily as good or better than the first game in a lot of ways.
I mean, besides the story, I did also like the representation in the game with the whole Hispanic and everything. The Black Lives Matter Easter egg. Well, is it an Easter egg? It's in the mission.
It's in a mission, yeah.
It's in a mission. It's a quick. I liked all that stuff. That it did
and not just on a racial cultural diversity level, but also when Miles starts busting out like the sign language, you're like, okay.
I know we did talk about that earlier. That was the most adorable part of the whole game between him and the deaf girl. That was a really sweet mission. I love that even though you have access to the whole of Manhattan, and there are some missions that take you to other places. I like that it kept the focus on Harlem. On that neighborhood, and it kind of felt like a character of its own. And more, because more so than the first game did, because the first game, you have the kind of people walking on the street and you can high five them and there's that little bit of interaction, but you don't really, like this game did a much better job of like giving you that sense of like, this is a community that Spider-Man is there to protect and there to help, and they felt like real alive people. So it just made what you're doing as Spider-Man, like the heroics feel that much more grounded and real,
especially for that ending. where the
Yeah,
neighborhood turns around and saves them.
Yeah.
You know, so loved it, and I agree with you. Whereas that first game was the entirety of Manhattan, this one is pretty centered on Harlem. And as you're 100%ing the different districts, you realize Harlem's going to be the last one to 100% because that's where the story is going to end. And I thought it was awesome. So big yanks, Justin. Thanks for joining me, man. This game is awesome, and the only problem I saw with it was it's done, and now I got to wait for a PS5 to get
for the next one.
My buddy, a couple of my friends were sitting on that Walmart website today. I think half of America was sitting on Walmart.com trying to get that PS5 drop that they were going to replenish with. That was a badly kept secret. Was Walmart getting a bunch of PS5s? A buddy of mine had it in his cart, and it got purchased out of the cart.
What?
So I don't know, man. I'm not even going to try.
I had a Target.
It's a little bit easier.
I heard a Target employee say that they were just going to have random in store, they stopped the online. They're just going to stock them in the stores. You can't even call and ask. You just got to show up and find it. That's
what I've heard about GameSpot, or GameStop, getting on their Black Friday, each GameStop is going to get 2 PS5s or whatever. I don't know if there's that much demand for the Xbox Series X or Series S, sorry, but we did talk about Geekscape. We did talk about both Series X and Series S and the PS5 a bit more on the show last week. So if y'all are new to Geekscape and want to check that out, go back on the feed and look for that episode. Derek Cranevelt, who runs Geekscape Games for us, is talking. He's got all of it. I don't even know how he lives in Canada, so the stuff's cheaper. So and they have healthcare, so he buys all the game systems. But Justin, Danny, thanks for joining me on this one. And I just want to say, if this is your first Geekscape, share it with your friends. Subscribe to Geekscape on any podcatcher that you got. Hit that share button. Let your friends know about it. And we actually have the December 12th. Mark all of Saturday on your calendars. You only got to pop in for some of it, or you can pop in for all of it. But we're going to be running another long charity live stream. I think all the Geekscape shows on the network are going to be involved. So you're going to want to set yourself up for that one. We've picked out a Christmas charity. I think, Danny, you helped us select it. You and Matt were talking about this charity. We'll announce it here in the next couple of days, but we're going to culminate with a big Geekscape show at the end of the charity run. All of our shows, from video games to music to horror, are all going to be involved in the charity stream. We're going to have all sorts of fun surprise guests be a part of it. We're going to play games and all sorts of stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. And we'll see what happens. Again, like I said at the top of the show, it's a free podcast. Help us out. Leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you got. 5 stars, please. You don't have to. 4.5. We'll deal with it. And share us with your friends. That is all we ask. Find us on your social medias, and find these guys on the social medias.
I post dumb shit, though. That's fine.
You've been listening to Geekscape long enough to know that dumb shit is pretty much par for the course, baby.
Yeah, that's true.
And once Ian watches New Mutants, we'll ultimately do an episode of that.
Wait, that's not streaming anywhere. I didn't see it on Disney Plus.
I don't know.
I think it will starting. Oh, actually, it is streaming now. It's streaming on you have to rent it or whatever, buy it on, Amazon. It's probably not worth paying for. Yeah, wait till it's.
I went to the drive-in and I enjoyed it.
I'm gonna get it from the library.
Okay, well, that's not a bad move. Geekscape, that and more is in store for you in future episodes, so please subscribe. Justin, Danny,
thank you
for this is Geekscape. Audio listeners, he's doing the Spider-Man web slinging moves.
I was making the noise.
I know, but they just think that you're trying to cool down your PS4,
or that I was banging on my coffee table.
See you later, guys.
Bye.